Today is measuring safety accountability. and I kind of liken safety to being a journey. Safety is a journey. What does that mean? Well, everybody's at a different place when it comes to safety and their accountability programs that they build into that. Um, there are some giant corporations that have had monumental success in their safety programs. Some of the big oil and gas companies, chemical companies. You think of Dow Chemical and DuPont and some of these companies that have been around blowing things up for generations. Um, they have built programs that have been highly successful. Does that mean that they've finished their journey into safety? And I would say absolutely no. And we see this that even companies with a very mature safety program, very good risk management programs, can sometimes have some pretty major problems happen. And so safety is a journey that really probably never ends. It's something that we'll put mileposts along the way, and maybe that ultimate, in reality, this is something that we have to continue to work on all along. And that's really what this subject is about today, is how do we make sure that we're on the right track for that journey? I think one of the first questions that we have to ask is, what is our overall goal? I don't know if Doug might have gone to look for a Coke, but what would be our overall goal when safety is on the line? What is our overall safety goal? And think about that for a second. What might it be? Did I hear you buzz in, Doug? Maybe
Yeah,
not.
I'm here.
Okay. What would our overall safety goal be?
Well, a lot of people talk about zero, right? Zero accidents.
No injuries, no incidents. Um, as I was thinking through preparing this presentation, I thought, what is our overall goal? And while those are great goals, we look at zero fatalities and the work that they're doing to try to eliminate fatalities out on our highways. That is a very admirable goal. Um, but I think at the end of the day, that might not be as important a goal for us to have zero injuries, zero incidents, as our culture. Um, just because I have zero incidents today or this year doesn't mean that I've necessarily succeeded in safety. It might mean that I just got really lucky. I didn't really have programs in place. I didn't do anything to get that, but for whatever reason, probability smiled upon me, and I didn't have an incident or I didn't have an injury in my organization. So as I really pondered this thought, I thought maybe the thing that our goal is what is our culture? Have we built a culture? And that includes all of the things that go around it, the programs that we have to build, instant investigations and um, audits and inspections of our facilities, all these other things that go along with it, really end up at the end of the day building a culture of safety. And we've talked about this a lot, but I thought how important that concept of safety culture is when it comes to looking at our overall goals. Because if our people have built this culture in their minds and in their daily act, then are the chances of us having no injuries, no incidents, go way up. And just because we have an incident doesn't necessarily mean that we failed in our overall progress towards our goal. It gives us an idea of where we can work and things that we can work on. But I think as we look at this, maybe that culture is something that should be our goal. That being said, how do you measure culture? Holy cow! I don't know how you actually measure something as nebulous as the culture of an organization, but we got to have something to measure to get us there. So let's let's kind of go on that angle for a minute. How do we reach our goals? Here's some steps to reaching our overall goals. We need to define what our goals are. Give ourselves a path to get to those goals. Define what the mileposts are. Where do we want to get along the way? Are there certain things that we need to accomplish before we end up close to our overall goal, which is creating that culture of safety in our organization, where people do the right things, they make the right decisions, and we reduce our chance of having that incident happen. We have to track our progress, and that's really what this presentation is all about: is how do we track where we are on our journey? How do we know if we get off the beaten path, where we're not really accomplishing the things that we're doing a lot of stuff, we're doing things that seem to be the right thing, but are they really getting us to where we want to go? So these are kind of the steps that we have to take to really reach our goals in the long run. And it's not a quick, easy thing. If you were given $1 million right now by your organization and said, put in a safety program that will prevent all injuries, could you accomplish that? I think it would be a tough goal to be able to do that tomorrow or by the end of the year, even if you had $1 million to spend towards that. And so I think we really need to think about what is it. It's maybe not the money. It's maybe not the bringing in people that have degrees in safety or anything like that. It's really knowing where we are and where we need to go. So this presentation is really about metrics. And you say, well, why do we use metrics? I thought this was a pretty good quote, and I couldn't find out. It's an anonymous quote. If you don't keep score, you're only practicing. And then I added on a little more, and we'll never win. If we're not really tracking what our performance is, we have no idea where we're at. We're lost out in the woods somewhere, and we don't know where we are on this journey. And then another tough question that we have to ask ourselves is, are we on a course to disaster? We may have had 0 incidents for 3 or 4 years, but are we on the path to a disaster, a fatality, or something very severe, because we aren't putting ourselves on that course to safety? Just because we've had a squeaky clean past doesn't necessarily mean our future will be that way. We may have gotten lucky, but we definitely need to work hard to prevent those bad things from happening. Okay. Ask some questions here. Why do we monitor our performance? Why would we want to do that? Well, we don't want to repeat our past problems. That's one major area of focus that we've talked about a lot here at the Trust. Is we don't want to see repeats of incidents over and over, and yet that's a pretty common thing. And so we have to ask ourselves, are we really learning from the problems that we've had? We need to be able to identify the areas that are hurting our performance, things that maybe are a near miss today or a minor incident today, but in the long run could really cause somebody severe injury or cost our organization a whole bunch of money because we have incidents or lose a building or something like that. They help us to identify our blind spots, things that we don't maybe identify as being a risk to our organization. As Doug and Brent and myself go around and we visit your facilities, we do risk assessments. And our goal is not to identify every problem that you potentially have there. These risk assessments that we do are more of a learning opportunity for us to be able to learn about what you do, and also for us to help train those of you in your organization that are dealing with risk and safety, help them understand what the common problems are that we see and what you can do about preventing those things. And occasionally, actually frequently, as we're out there, doing these risk assessments, people will comment, "Oh, wow, I'm here every day, and I'd never noticed that." And that's part of that whole blind spot. Um, and it would probably be similar to with here at the trust. I just did a risk assessment at the trust here weeks ago, and I identified some things that I had probably walked past a number of times, but because I had changed my mindset and I went out looking for these areas of concern, I identified some that kind of made me go, "Wow, there's some stuff we need to fix." Um, we want to look at what those blind spots are, and let us know how successful we are. It's really hard to stay on track if we don't really determine whether we're succeeding or failing. If I see I'm doing really well, it's a lot easier to keep putting my efforts towards that. If we're not succeeding in the initiatives that we put in place, well, maybe it's time to redirect how we're putting our energies. Sometimes it takes time to get this stuff in place, and we need to stick to it. Um, and at the end of the if we monitor our performance, it helps us to improve morale, hit our targets, save money. At the end of the day, there's a lot of money on the line when it comes to safety and risk management, both just from the insurance premiums that are sure to go up if you have poor performance, but also from the employee morale. If people see others getting injured around them, that's a tougher workplace to hang out in, and these employees may say, "Hey, I got another opportunity," and it's a lot safer to work there. That's an intangible that we may not see, but it's definitely hits the bottom line and can affect our ability to do our jobs and keep good staff there. All right. Well, in industry and in many of the things that we do, you hear the term key performance indicators, and I'll just talk about metrics in here, but these key performance indicators are things that can help guide us to reach our overall goals. And so, if we talk about KPIs in the area of safety, that's really what we're talking about. What is a KPI? This is a metric that is clear and it's understandable. We want everybody to understand what our goals are and how we're doing. If I've got if I've got some metrics that people just can't understand what the measurement is, value, if only the people at the highest level of the organization understand the metrics, they're not valuable. We need to share this with everybody in the organization so they can see how are we doing? Are we getting close? So they need to be clear, understandable. They need to have a target. That should generally be a number and a time frame in which that we want to accomplish this thing. We also need to know where that metric comes from. Who provides the information? And how does that get there? How often? What's the frequency in which we want to report on that information? Generally, a monthly reporting strategy is probably the best. If you go more frequent than that, it becomes burdensome for people to try to keep track of these numbers. If you go beyond a month, they don't mean a whole lot, because it's not timely enough for people to take action when that happens. If at the end of the year we look and we say, well, we had 3 times the number of injuries this year as last year, that doesn't do us a whole lot of good. But if we look in the first month or the first quarter of the year and say we're on a bad track, then maybe we can put some corrections in place for that. So counting is important, but just counting may not tell us the whole story. So we need to know what it means. If we say we only had 10 injuries this year, well, if you are General Motors and you only had 10 injuries in the entire year, that is incredible. That is a great record because of the size of the organization. But if we're in an organization that has 10 employees, that means all 10 of us got hurt this year. That's a problem. So we really need to put it in perspective. We need to compare it to some sort of a standard. And so when we're selecting our metrics, we need to have, is it something that I can compare to an accepted standard that's out there? Normalize our data. We kind of tie it so I can compare myself to General Motors. I can compare myself to a little small town out in Utah somewhere, or a district or a county, and we can compare back and forth between those. So we want to tie this data to something that's in common. And to allow for accurate comparisons, we want to look at what is accepted in industry. So a few examples of things that we can use to normalize data could be hours worked or payroll. So if I take the number of injuries per hour worked, or I'll talk a little more detail about what some standard measurements are, that would let me compare myself to other similar organizations across the country or around the world. Sometimes, maybe in auto accidents, we compare ourselves to how many cars do we have in the field, and we look from the trust angle, how many vehicles are insured, and we compare the number of vehicle accidents per insured. And that gives us a metric, so a very large organization can be compared to a small one. Sometimes we use expenditures. How much money are we spend, or what's the payroll that we have, and we can use that as some normalizing data. Okay, here's some organizations that can provide information that will help us, give us kind of that measuring stick that's out there. The Bureau of Labor Statistics. Many of you get a survey periodically from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and comes in a message that says that you're violating federal law if you don't turn this in. And they ask about your injuries that happen in the workplace. And so that is all compiled in the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and you can go online and do a search, just BLS statistics, and it'll pull up some really nice reports where you can go and compare to others. The NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, National Safety Council, various industry groups, and other organizations are out there that provide metrics that can help us to gauge our incidents based on others. Now, just an angle on this: when I have an industry group, just for example, let's say you're in the transportation business, you're running buses or public transportation. There are organizations that provide statistics specifically to public transit organizations, and there will be similar organizations for sewer treatment, water treatment, cities and towns, those types of organizations, if you want to get down to the really nitty-gritty detail of that. So in finding our course and deciding what metrics are going to work really well for us, we have to make a decision on what those should be, and we've talked about some basics of that. But there's another level on this. There's the difference between a lagging or a leading indicator. Sometimes we talk about trailing indicators as well. But basically, if I talk about lagging or trailing, that's the same thing. So let's talk about really what the difference is. A lagging indicator is a measure of safety or health or loss that can only be calculated after a given event or time period. This is something that happened. This is a good or bad thing, but it's already happened. There's really nothing I can do about it. It's something that's happened in the past, and this is really a measure of failure when we start talking about incident rates, where we lost time days, and this is the trust total lost time days, and we're pretty happy with the track that you as trust members have been doing on this, working really hard to minimize the number of lost time days that come from that. That indicates that our severity of our losses are doing well. But once that incident has happened, it's already in the past. And so the problem with lagging indicators is they already happened, and it's really just that measure of failure, what we did. Okay, so here's some traditional lagging indicators. OSHA recordable incident rate. Each year you have to produce your OSHA 300 log, and there are certain definitions. And if you're interested in that, if you haven't done that before, there's a webinar recording on our website about the OSHA, preparing your OSHA record keeping, your 300 log. Specific definitions for what is an OSHA recordable incident. And then we can take that and compare that to other organizations and see how we did. Lost time is another really good lagging indicator because it tells us what's the severity of the incidents that I have. So I look at frequency and severity. EMOD, your experience modification factor, that's really how well are you doing from a workers' compensation standpoint compared to other similar organizations. And auto incident rates, how many crashes, how many incidents did I have per vehicle, and compare that with national statistics or to the trust statistics. Oh, let me go back to this. So we look at this. We look at this map, and you look on here and say, well, Utah had 39 fatal work injuries in a given year. We look at California and they had 390, and you say, well, Utah's doing a lot better than California. Is that really the fact? Well, we've got to look at what is the group that's spread over. Well, California has a significantly larger population than the state of Utah, and so we'd have to go and look at that. Just wanted to point out that just a given number may not tell us the entire story. So as we look at the OSHA recordable incident rate, this is something we take the number of cases from recordable cases from our OSHA 300 log, times that by 200,000. What does that mean? Well, that's the number that they took based on the average hours worked per year for a full-time employee, and so we take that and we times that by 100 employees, and that gives us 200,000. And then we divide that out by the hours worked in our workplace, and that gives us a rate. So that's the number of cases per 100 average work hour, or 100 average work employees. And we can compare ourselves to similar industries or the overall average for the company or for the country. Days away rate. This is another regular rate that we can look at. And we do the same thing, but we use lost time cases. Now, obviously, this should be lower than the other, the days away or the OSHA recordable rate. And in this graph here, you can see up here over time, these are national statistics that the Bureau of Labor Statistics puts out. And really over this time period from 2003 to 2017, we've almost cut the number of OSHA recordable incidents in half as a country. That's pretty good. That's pretty great. We look at the days away, the second one down, the red line, and it's gone down, but not at the same level as the overall. Okay. Let me just give a couple of rates here. Total recordable rate for the state of Utah is 3.0, and this is from 2017. This is the latest information that we have from Bureau of Labor Statistics. So 3.0 cases for the 200,000 hours worked. But what we find if we look a little closer is that our local governments in the state, their rate is 6.1. It's double the rate of private industry. Well, what does that tell us? That tells us we've got some work to do in our areas of responsibility. Okay. Here's another one. When we go to that days away rate, we can see here that private industry has a days away rate of just under one claim for that 100 standard employees, but in local government, we are at 1.6, significantly more than the private industry. So we have work to do. Now we know where we stand. Once again, just on EMOD, just so you understand that And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this because it takes a little bit of time. But if you have questions about your eMod, please talk to us. Talk to any of the trust representatives. We can help you out to understand how that works. But this specifically relates to workers' compensation coverage and how you're performing versus uh, other organizations similar to you. And it really has a long memory. When we talk about lagging indicators, eMod is one of those really lagging indicators. It goes back 4 years. So it's the first three of the last 4 years that count. On this, severity counts more. So when you hear Doug or Brent or I talking about lost time claims, getting people back to work, return to work, light duty, all of these words, it's really important, and it has a significant impact on the amount of money that you pay in premiums. So if your EMOD is above 1, that means you're above a standard rate, and this is something that's looked at on a national level. If you're less than 1, you're doing better. Does that mean you're perfect? No, just like we talked, we can be lucky over time, and it can change because of the instance that we have. But this is a good lagging indicator to tell us really over time how well are we doing. Other indicators that we might see could involve auto incidents per vehicle, liability claims, public complaints, permit misses or violations. So regulated industry like wastewater treatment or stormwater or something like that, a violation in that is a pretty big thing. Once again, it's a lagging indicator. It's something that's already happened, and we don't really have a lot of control over that. But we have to. But it's something that we may want to track. Regulatory agency citations or fines could go right along with that. Here's just an idea of on those auto incident rates, how you can look at that. Say, how many vehicles are we operating? We use our rate by the number of vehicles insured. And so we keep track of that because that's a number that we have easily at hand. And we divide that into the number of accidents that we have or claims, and that gives us a rate. Nationally, that's about 4% of the cars on the road will have an accident each year. And just an FYI on that, for commercial vehicles, which many of our vehicles fall into that category, and we're definitely business vehicles, it's significantly higher than that. The trust incident rate right now for autos is about 3.5%, which gives us a pretty good warm fuzzy feeling. Hey, we're better than national average. Is that good enough? No. We definitely want to continue on our journey and get to the point where we get that number way down. All right. So just a couple of things to think about on this is we can use these rates to find our trends, to find out where we're going. We can look a little deeper into these things. We may want to look at the type of accident and say, we've had a ton of backing crashes, or we've had a ton of slips and falls that have led to our workers' comp incidents. How can we proceed and reduce those? That's one way to look at that. All right, and also for our incident investigation. So I took this I took this picture one day, and I they have this great sign, right? It says if we've had a recordable incident has occurred, and so it has a street light, and the red light comes on and lets everybody know as they drive into the facility that we had an incident, and that should help everybody's awareness. I think it's a great program. Does anybody see the issue here with this sign? Well, as I saw this, I thought, wow, that's a great sign, and their days were not up to date. But I looked to the side, and I found an electrical hazard. We had wide open electrical circuit there. If you look on the left-hand side of this picture, and I thought, wow, what message are we really sending to our people if we're willing to allow a safety hazard to be on our safety sign? Anyway, so trailing indicators. It's important data. We need to know it. We need to know how we're performing, but it is a measure of our failure. And it's not something that's going to help us look forward. If we're driving along and looking in our rearview mirrors all the time, we're going to get in crashes. And so let's look forward. Let's look more on leading indicators. A leading indicator is a measure that signals future events or positive efforts towards preventing injury, illness, or loss. So a leading indicator is something that will indicate that those lagging indicators are going to go down. So what would that be? We want to see where we're headed. So what kind of indicator would we use? Well, let's look at our values. Let's look at our goals. Let's look at where our journey is to end. If it's changing our safety culture, that may be we may use different indicators than our goal is just to have zero accidents. We can fix all these things if we terminated all of our employees and send everybody home. We're not going to have any accidents. So that's not really, we don't provide the services that our community needs that way. So let's find something that will give us a direction of where we want to be. I found this quote attributed to Albert Einstein. It says, "Not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts." So pick wisely, choose well the metrics that we're going to use. These metrics should apply to all of our organization. Now, we might pick a few of these metrics that are specific to one part of the organization, because if we have a police department, not everybody has a certain metric about looking at pursuits and reviewing dash cam video. That's probably not going to be something that the Parks and Recreation Department is going to use. So we may have one of those, but generally broad metrics that will apply to the whole organization are best. They need to show us where we're headed. They need to be, like we said, understandable to everybody in the organization, and give us some tools to use. The safety committee, whether that's a group of your department heads or a different organization, it needs to give them tools that they can use to guide our safety program, and guide the decisions that we make as an organization. So here's some ideas of what we might use for leading indicators. One of these is a pretty simple thing: incident reporting. Did every incident that occurred get reported to the supervisor and thus onto upper management, where whoever is the ultimate responsible party for that, in the same day? You say, well, why does that matter? Well, that is a pretty critical metric that we can use, and many organizations have implemented this all the way to the top of the organization. Alcoa was one that really started this focus years ago, when they said that the CEO of the company will know when an incident occurs. And I think their level was an OSHA recordable, but the CEO of Alcoa, one of the biggest corporations in the world, would get a notification the same day when that occurred. How important did they think that was? Well, they made it so important that they actually terminated some facility managers, plant managers, for not doing same-day reporting on that. That's a big deal. This the importance of safety, or the importance of incidents, and having that information as soon as possible can't be overstated. And so that could be a good leading indicator. Safety training. What does safety training mean to our organization? Well, this is a leading indicator, because if we train everybody on identifying hazards and preventing injuries and incidents that happen, that's a leading indicator. We're looking ahead and saying, we're training everybody today so they don't do something tomorrow that will get them hurt. So one way to look at these indicators is, our expectation is everybody does a safety training at least monthly. And then we get the information from the departments, And we look and we say, we had 5 of 6 departments did their safety training this month. Well, what does that tell us as an organization and as a safety committee? Where do we need to focus our attention on that metric? Well, it's really simple. We talk to that department and say, what happened? Why didn't we accomplish this month? And so it's quick. Within a month, we have a metric that we can take action on that will lead us to something in the future. Department inspections. Do we go out and look for hazards in our workplace at least once a month? As you guys might remember, in our TAP program that we've done in the past, that we had inspections as part of that. Getting out and looking for hazards is important, not only to correct the hazards, but also to help train people on what to look for. Safety committee meetings. Can a safety committee meeting indicate what's going to happen in the future? I believe it can. If we have an active safety committee that's regularly getting together and looking at what our hazards are, what our problems are in the organization, where we're being successful, and ultimately these metrics that we're talking about, if the safety committee is regularly meeting and directing how our company is handling these issues, we're going to be more successful over time. All staff safety meetings. Are we doing a periodic safety meeting to let everybody in staff know that this is an organizational value? This is something that is important to us. Sometimes safety observations can be very important as well. Going out and looking, how are we doing today? Maybe sitting out in the parking lot as all the employees are driving out and see what percentage of people are wearing their safety belt or wearing their personal protective equipment. And then using that data to direct our efforts to improve the compliance there, and also other parts around that. It's not just compliance. We want people to understand why it's important to wear their safety belt, why it's important to wear their PPE as we're working on this culture. Other indicators we might look at: the percentage of drivers with violations each month. If you've signed up for our motor vehicle records program, which most of you have, you get a report, and it has a percentage of drivers on there that have violations. This is a number that we monitor regularly. We look at this. When we started, we were at almost 20% of our drivers had violations on their records, and over time, we're monitoring nearly 20,000 drivers out there. Our number has gone down. I had it in the back of my head, Doug. If you're listening, I think it's just under 11. Is that right? I should know that.
It's like 11 and a half.
11 and a half. It's reduced over time. This is a good indication of what future events will be. Why? Well, because drivers that have violations on their records have more accidents. And so what can we do with that number? What can we do with that list of drivers with violations? Well, we can focus some attention on those people to help them be safer drivers. And you've done a great job as an organization as organizations over the years. We've gone from almost 20% down to under 12% of those drivers with violations. That's a great reduction, and that's even here at the Trust, our percentage of our drivers with violations has gone down significantly over that time, and that's in part due to the efforts of the organization to help drivers be better. Whether that's a defensive driving course or whatever it is, we help them through. Review of code responses. This is more in the law enforcement and fire and EMS area. Go and look and see how are we doing when we're running code. Maybe reviews of dash cam videos with the police officers, review of policy with them. Completed safety work orders. So as we go out and we audit our facilities and we look at what the conditions are, when we identify a problem, we want to track that and determine how long it took to complete that work order. What kind of a metric is that? Well, it tells us how effective we are at completing repairs or abatement of various different problems that we identify. Other things that we've encouraged you to look at: sewer manhole inspections. Well, that's a forward-looking metric in that if we're looking at our sewer system and inspecting what's going on in there, that's going to be a prevention program for sewer backups. And this has been very successful. Over the years, we've seen a major reduction in the number of sewer backups and the severity of those backups, simply because you know what's going on in your system, and then you're able to put the appropriate maintenance towards that. Employee participation in various different things, whether that's something like having a suggestion box, having people report near misses or safety concerns. Employee participation is a definite pulse on what our employees are feeling and on the culture of our organization. Anyway, these are not necessarily the metrics that you're going to include in your monthly monitoring, but there's some ideas, and I would throw out for you to sit down as a safety committee, as an organization, and say, what really makes sense for us? What is a forward-looking? Yeah, definitely we're going to look at our trailing indicators, our lagging indicators, and determine how we're doing compared to last year, how we're doing to other organizations. But what can we look at that's forward-looking? Give us an idea where we're going to be a year from now or 10 years from now. And if we look forward and we see some bad stuff, what can we do to deal with that and really head it off? One of the ways that you can metrics on a regular basis is by providing a safety accountability report, or some sort of a that is seen at various different levels of the organization. And really, I would recommend that it's seen at all levels of the organization, so people know how we're doing. So take your metrics and put those on a report. And I'll send out a copy of this one. And it looks like I put an older copy on this. I actually have an updated one, and I will send the updated one out to you for an example of what you might be able to use as a regular report. How many metrics do you need? This one has a bunch. The updated one actually is a little less busy than this one, and it's really up to you. It may be 3 metrics that you're looking at. It may be a dozen, but find out what's important to your organization and really what's going to get you where you're going. Interesting quote here from George Bernard Shaw: "The only man who behaves sensibly is my tailor. He takes my measurements anew every time he sees me, while all the rest go on with their old measurements and expect me to fit them." I think that's a good thought. You know, our measurements need to be checked on a regular basis. How are we doing this month compared to last month? And once a year, do our metrics really make sense? So we need to ask the right question. What do these metrics mean? What does it say about our organization and our culture? Does it get us to our goals? Does it get us to our ultimate goal? And we need to ask these questions often. Publicize the data, whether it's good or bad. We need everybody to know that we're in this together, and that we succeed or fail as an organization. And so if we're going the wrong direction, what can we do together to make it good? And let's celebrate when we do well, and let people know, hey, we're having a great year, and that just tags on to the 3 other years that we've done a good job here. And here's why we think this is happening, and here are our metrics that we're using. All right, just to wrap this up. We definitely need to monitor our lagging indicators, but we want to determine where we want to be and use leading indicators to help guide where we're going. So sit down as your safety committee and say what makes sense for our organization, and formalize that. Ask people or require people, departments to report on this information monthly. That in and of itself has a great way has a great potential people's behavior and help them to be better. Because if a supervisor, even if they really don't believe too much in safety training or doing an audit, if they know that it's part of their monthly reporting, they're going to start doing it, and over time they're going to see the value of those things. Okay, that was a lot of stuff. Covered it without a coughing fit. I'm proud of myself, so I have to pat myself back when you accomplish something. Um, if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and type those in the chat box or the Q&A box, and I'm going to ask Doug if he has anything to add, or if I kind of blew something off or I wasn't clear on anything.
No, that was great, Jason. I just emphasize the importance of sharing your measurements with all of your employees, because we want everybody to recognize their impact. And when we share the results with people, then it allows them to be able to correlate efforts, with those results. And if we want to have a culture, you talked about measuring culture. If you want to have a culture of safety, then we need to have everybody involved. Otherwise, we don't get a cultural shift if we don't have everybody engaged and involved in that, in those results. So we got to share it. We have to involve them. We have to make them know that they're a part of it. And so the measurements need to be things that have to everybody.
Absolutely, good point, Doug. Appreciate that. I am not seeing questions here, so I either really rock the program and everybody understands everything, or they're all asleep. Doug, even.
No, I'm here.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate your time and attention today. I'd love to hear your comments on this. I'd love to hear your experience. What metrics that you found that work really well for your organization, what doesn't work well, and how you've really been successful in engaging your coworkers in the safety process and really changing your safety culture out there to prevent those incidents that could happen. Question was, can we make the slides available? And the answer is yes. I'll be sending a PDF of the slides out as soon as the webinar recording's up on our website. Sometimes that's the same day. Sometimes it takes a couple of days, depending on IT, how much time they get that up. But I'll send a PDF of the slides out, as well as a copy of that the safety accountability report for you to take a look at. That's all the questions. Thanks, folks. Appreciate all that you do out there. Have a safe day, and we look forward to seeing you soon.